Hello everybody, in today's video I'm going to tell you about the 10 things that could possibly kill or delay your real estate transaction here in the state of Arizona. So if you're curious about what could go wrong in the middle of a buy or sell of real estate here in the state, stay tuned, I'm going to tell you all about it. This channel is Living in Northern Arizona, where I will teach you everything there is to know about what it's like to eat, live, play, sleep, retire here in the northern half of the state. Please do me a favor, if you like the video, give me a thumbs up, and I would love it if you would subscribe to the video, because every single week I post videos about what it's like living here in the northern half of the state. And if you subscribe, hit the notification bell. That helps other people who are looking for this type of content to find the video and to find the channel. My name's Dawn Dickinson. I sell real estate here, so if you ever have a question about selling, buying, or even investing in real estate in the northern half of the state, I'm happy to talk to you, and I always have the link to my email, my phone, text in the description below. So give me a call, give me an email, or just go to the website in the link again and schedule a 30-minute phone call, Zoom call, because I love to talk about real estate. Some people call just because they have questions about living here and they can rule out or decide, yay, I want to live here, and other people are just ready to buy or sell a home and they want to work with me. So I love that, because the YouTube community makes my very best clients. Okay, so the first thing that can delay your closing or kill your transaction completely is if your property is located on a private road. Now, normally that wouldn't be a problem. Where it is a problem is some lenders. Some lenders will have what they call an overlay, which basically, I don't even know if that's the correct rule, but I've heard lenders call it that, where their lending facility has an overlay, which is an extra rule that says if you have a property on a private road that you need a private road maintenance agreement, and that agreement needs to be recorded with the county in order for the lender to loan on that property. I see this maybe a third of the time, maybe a third to the half of the time. Not all lenders do it, and I don't encounter that a lot actually, but when I sell cabins, and I do sell a lot of cabins or vacation homes in the summertime, which are kind of off in the woods, the wilderness, and they're there because, you know, people want privacy and sometimes want off-grid properties. Those are often on a private road, and if you're getting a loan on that, your lender may require the private road maintenance agreement, and if one doesn't exist, which they probably are only in place about a third of the time where I encounter this situation, sometimes the lender will make you create a private road maintenance agreement and record it with the county. And what that would mean is you'd have to have an official document that says, usually it's the buyer in this time, but if you can get everybody in the neighborhood to agree that I will be maintaining the road and I will be collecting from the people on this street when time is to do the improvements, and whoever's the buyer or whoever you can get to go in on this maintenance agreement agrees to maintain this road. And that brings me to my number 2 is snow removal. So again, if it's on a private road, you may have to include snow removal, how you plan to remove snow during the winter time on your cabin or your property that is on a private road, and that will need to be included in the private road maintenance agreement and recorded as part of the agreement on how you're going to maintain snow removal. Now, of course, if you are on a city road or a county maintained road, snow removal is done by the county, but if it's on a private road, that can be an issue. Of course, that only is an issue here in the northern half of the state. In Phoenix, no one cares, but Phoenix does require occasionally the private road maintenance agreement if you're in the more rural communities, and if you are in northern Arizona buying a cabin, that can be an issue, the private road, which would include snow removal in the private road maintenance agreement. Number 3 is, mobile homes. So often mobile home sales are not a problem. Again, it needs to be on its own property in order to be considered real estate. So a mobile home on its own piece of land can be sold through the typical, go through a title company and do a typical real estate sale. But occasionally, and I ran into this problem a couple of years ago, that it'll be something that was sold. I had this home sale. It was a personal friend land of the family, and the mobile home was put on the land in 1984. Now, of course, the owner is now a widow. Her husband has passed away 10, 12 years ago, and a lot of the paperwork, where can you find it? And so they needed the affidavit of a fixture. Now, once the title company had everything they needed, they could easily make the affidavit of a fixture, which would make the sale real property, real estate, and everything would be cool. But because the owner was a widow, she didn't have the affidavit of a fixture, was not recorded, so the title company needed the title from the DMV. Well, again, 1984, not a lot of people are hanging on to the title, so we didn't have the title, and normally, it's no problem, we'll just go to the Department of Motor Vehicle and get a duplicate title. But this happened to be in late 2020 during the lockdown, or at least the lockdowns were over, but the Department of Motor Vehicles didn't think the lockdowns were over. For them, it was like vacation time, right? So you couldn't go into the DMV office because they were all closed, and you couldn't go into a lot of these little private helper offices to get it because they didn't do mobile home sales. Those would only do the typical stuff. So you go to the DMV and it would say, go to our website. They did not want to do anything else except for the online stuff. So you go to their website, and all there is you can do a name or address change. You could sell your vehicle and transfer the title. If you had the title online, you could move, or you could renew your driver's license. So that was it. They would say, go to my website. You could do everything on the website, but if it's not in one of those four, you couldn't do it at all. So you're out of luck. They don't give you another option. So the other option is you call and make an appointment. Well, you call, nobody answered the phone at that time. So you call, leave messages, nobody call you back. You're like, how am I going to get this duplicate title for a mobile home? So in this particular transaction that I'm telling you about, this is about a month now has passed. We've already passed our closing date because we haven't rectified the title, and the buyer actually knew somebody who worked for one of those offices, and she gave me a number where maybe they'll answer the phone. So I did leave a message on that number. If I didn't know this person, I don't know how we would have ever resolved it, but somebody called me back. I had to jump through hoops. I had to get papers notarized. We had to go back and forth, seller signing it. Eventually, they gave us a duplicate title. Yay! So we think we're done. We got the duplicate title. The title company recorded the affidavit of a fixture, and now we are ready to go. So that was very exciting. We're ready to go, and so we're moving on, even though we're a month into the deal and we're past closing time. But this isn't where it ends, which comes to my next number 4 thing is appraisers. So with manufactured homes, if it's a single wide, which this was, it was a beautiful single wide on property, but it was a single wide. That means your conventional lenders will not lend on it and have to go to special lenders, which I affectionately call loan sharks are us. So they're at loan sharks are us, and now we originally put this under contract in October 5th, and it's now November, and they're having trouble getting an appraiser to go out there because it's at Mormon Lake. It's kind of far. We don't want to drive there from Flagstaff, even though it's only 30 miles and you're going to get paid for it. But no, we can't get an appraiser out there. Now it's in December, and now we're getting an alternate brokered appraisal out there. So they're not wanting to go out. They're saying, oh, it's snowing, and then, oh, it's the holidays, and oh, now it's January and it's snowing. Finally, after a couple of months, appraiser does go out there, and they can't find the lockbox, so they leave. Oh, I couldn't find the lockbox, I can't get in. We go through this. Then we get I'm out there and I got the key out of the lockbox, and the door is stiff and I can't open the door. So after all of this, I'm about to go nuts, and I leave a ranting, it wasn't even a voicemail, I leave a comment on the email thread that says you just need to go out there and do your job. And the person at the lending company now says that real estate agent is hostile and we're blocking her from all further communication. And I'm like, how can I do that? I'm the agent representing both the buyer and the seller, and now the lending company is blocking me from all the communication on my transaction. How are we going to do this? Well, eventually we did close. One of the appraisers let me go out and just take more pictures of the inside that they needed, the bathroom close-ups and everything, and we close the deal. It took 4 months. That is the record. Now, the moral to this story is most of the time I say go with my local lender, because my local lender knows appraisers out there. If they're not picking up, her broker can get on the phone and call, and we can get an appraisal schedule that won't take 4 months and won't take this kind of a disastrous outcome. But in this particular case, because it was a mobile home and it was a single wide, we had to go to one of the special lenders who's a national lender. I won't be using them again because I do have other mobile home lenders now that are a little bit better, but 4 months to close because of the two things. Number 4, that it's a mobile home, and number 5, or I should say 3 and 4, mobile home, and then getting appraisers out when you're out in the woods. Another thing about the appraisers, last thing, is a lot of times if it's a property out in like Stoneman Lake or Overgar, the appraisers are going to rake you over and charge $1,800 for an appraisal. So appraisers, again, the story is you're better off to go with the local agent who has connections with local lenders, because that way you can work around the appraiser problem, and hopefully it won't take me 4 months to close a property ever again. So that was number 4 and 5. Number 5 is clouds on the title. So here is a deal that I'm working with right now that we have been in escrow for over 2 months. Hopefully it's resolved and we will be done with it, and we will close this week on schedule. But what had happened is we went under contract and the owners had died, and the daughter is now selling the property. So this happens to me all the time. I live in Sedona. I do a lot of Sedona sales, where in Sedona you see a lot of people have moved in there when they're in their 60s and 70s, retire, they live there till they pass, and then their children sell the home. And I've done 2 just in the last 12 months where it was a deceased seller and the heir was selling the property. No problem. Super clear, easy transaction, like nothing was out of the ordinary. But in this particular one I'm working right now, the seller's daughter did not clear the title. When we went under contract, we didn't know this was an issue, and they're like, oh, we just have a little bit of a change in the title contract of the seller and it'll take about 2 days to resolve. Well, it didn't take 2 days to resolve. They had to get lawyers, they had to get court dates, they had to drag it on. And meanwhile, I have buyers that have sold their house and have all their stuff in a storage locker, living temporary with their kids. So an enormous hassle to everybody involved. So I guess the lesson here is, listing agents, if you are taking a listing, make sure, especially a deceased owner, make sure that that seller has clear title before you list it, because yeah, this is infuriating everybody that's involved, and I hope this never happens again. But this type of a cloud, other types, if there are hidden liens on the property that you don't know about, the title company is the one that clears all this up. But my goodness, this title escrow officer that I've been working with had his work cut out for him, and hopefully we're really going to close this week. So that is number 5, clouds on the title. Number 6 thing that can kill your deal is if the owner of the property had a reverse mortgage. So reverse mortgage is good sometimes for owners of property who are elderly, because that gives them a little bit of an income, because Social Security isn't enough to pay anybody's expenses. But if you have heirs, that's where the problem can come in, especially if you are married and the reverse mortgage and title is only in one of the couple's names. Then the other one, the widow or widower who was left behind, if it's not the one whose name is on the reverse mortgage, that person can be homeless, because the reverse mortgage company will give you at most a year to get that property cleared and start paying back, maybe pay the entire balance of the reverse mortgage, or you're out, they are repossessing you. So reverse mortgage, again, can kill your real estate deal. It can leave your heirs in a lot of problem. It can leave your widow or widower homeless, and it can cause a great deal of problems for your children. But if you don't have heirs, or you're not worried about your heirs, then reverse mortgage, not a problem. Number 7 is not a problem I have personally encountered, but this did happen to one of my colleagues who lived in Phoenix. So this is something that could happen in Phoenix, not going to happen in northern Arizona, because you don't have those man-made lakes that people like down in Phoenix, because it's a dry desert. And so if you have one of these man-made lakes with some fish stocked in it, it makes a beautiful living arrangement. And some of the homes are on these lake communities, fake lake communities. So there was about maybe it was 3-4 years ago, one of my colleagues had a listing in Maricopa. Maricopa now is in the south part of Phoenix. It's about 45 minutes from town. I personally don't like Maricopa because there's a 1-2 lane road into it and traffic can get very bad. Plus it's kind of far, but prices are way lower there and you can get a bargain if you don't mind living far from town, or if you're retired, then it doesn't matter, right? So there was a deal on a home in one of these lake communities. I don't even know how it ended, but what had happened is there was something that went wrong and all of the fish in the fake lake died. And so you're trying to sell this home and you've got like dead fish floating up on the top of this fake lake, which the first day or two wasn't that, I guess it was horrible, but not as horrible as what followed is when all these fake fish or these dead fish in the fake lake, now they start decomposing and rotting and the smell permeated the entire community and you've got flies and insects and hideous stuff, and it's being covered by the local news. So every day the local Phoenix news is covering the story about the dead fish in Maricopa Lake, and I don't know how a buyer would have completed that transaction, but if you're doing one of these and something weird like that happens where the lake, all the fish die, and I mean there were a lot of fish, the whole surface was covered with dead fish, that can certainly ruin your real estate transaction. Okay, number 8 is septic tanks. Now, if you're in town, you're probably going to be connected to a sewer system, but I encounter myself a lot of sales on homes with a septic tank. Here in Village of Oak Creek, many of the homes are on a septic system. Again, Verde Valley, there's quite a few on a septic, and any of these cabins that I sell, unless you're in Munns Park, almost all of them will be on a septic system. So I know what you need to do. If you're selling one with a septic system, you need to get a company that does the septic inspection. They need to do the inspection and they need to fill out a document by the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, and they need to file that during the transition or the sale, and the title company will file it with the county, but you need a certified inspector to do it. So we have plenty of them here. And what you need is a functional rating. Now, if you get a non-functional septic tank, you can still do the sale, but that's going to cause problems for you. So when we have a normal septic tank inspection, it's okay. But some of these older, probably older homes, you might encounter a couple of these. One scenario is that they have what some of these old companies did. They called them the barrel system. They actually put a couple of these 55 barrel drums in the back of the home, and they just dumped the sewer in the barrel and put like a plyboard board over the top. I mean, how hideous. I encountered one of these where the barrels had actually rusted and disintegrated, and so sewage is just going right in the backyard. So if you encounter that, you have to replace the septic system. The other thing is if you encounter a cesspool. Now, anything built prior to 1974 is at risk if you haven't had a septic inspection recently, because in 1974 they became illegal. So if they dig up your septic to do the inspection and they find a cesspool, whoa, that is bad. So you're supposed to replace that or your home becomes uninhabitable, and the county could put one of those little red papers on your door and make it condemned. Now, likely the county is not going to do that unless somebody turns you in, but the point is now you have a unfunctional septic tank. Now, in the septic inspection and in the contract, the purchase offer contract in Arizona, there's also something called the on-site wastewater addendum. I might have the name slightly off. In fact, I did a video on the septic tank inspection a while back. You can, I'll put the link below. I did have a guy that was a septic employee, chastise me. Oh, how do you realtors do videos when you don't know anything about septics? And I'm like, excuse me, I'm just trying to tell you what you need to do to get your septic tank to pass so that you can make the sale. So I digress. But the septic addendum says that if the default is if there's a problem with the septic and it needs to be brought up to functional status, that the seller is responsible for up to 1% of the purchase price to make that functional, and after that it's negotiable. Well, So I did have a deal recently. It was a $350,000 sale. They dug it up. It would have been a functional septic had tree roots not grown into it and crushed the tank. So the seller replaced the tank, which was about $10,000. So the point here is, even though the addendum says you're only responsible for 1% of the sales price, which would have been $3,500, sellers, you really are obligated to give your buyers a functional septic when you're selling your home. So really, the seller should do the right thing, as my seller did in this last case I'm referring to, and just replace the tank. But I've had other deals fall through because, say, they dig it up and there's a cesspool, and now the seller's like, I don't know if I'm going to replace that. It might be too expensive. And I'm like, okay, so the buyer can walk away at that point, which the other sale I'm thinking of, the buyer did walk away, and then the seller couldn't sell the cabin, and about 4 months later, they came crying back to me, are you sure we'll do the septic? Do they want to buy it? And of course, it was over at that point. But really, you were obligated to make sure your septic tank is functional when you sell your place. And I think when I start writing offers from now on, I'm going to go and do the override on that addendum, saying that it's up to $10,000-$15,000 to replace the tank, but I haven't done that yet, but I just got that idea. That's why it's very important that you work with the local agent that deals with this type of transaction, so that they know what to do and they know how to protect you. But again, sellers, you really are obligated to make sure you have a functional septic when you sell your property. Okay, number 9 is if you have a property on a water haul system. Now, what a water haul system is if basically you have a property that's far from town and they don't have access to city water, private water company, and a well might be too deep to drill, that you could have a water haul system. And what that entails is you'll get a gigantic water tank, and it will hold, say, 5,000 gallons, and then you will have a company that's a delivery system that will go to a water source. Like, I know Grand Junction, they have a place, Flagstaff has several places where the delivery services will go, and they will charge you maybe 8 cents a gallon to come, and they will deliver water, and that's how you get water. And then you have delivery usually every month, but however often you need it, you get your water that way. And there are other homes in the communities that are like that. When I say Williams, Williams is a common place that has that, because you have to drill so deep to get water that a lot of them don't do it. Now, I have sold property in Williams on a well before, so I'm not saying all of Williams is on water haul, but I do occasionally come across those in places like Dewey or Williams, where it's just very rural. So the water haul system, and even on the outskirts of Flagstaff, kind of by the ski resort. Now, the time this could cause a problem is of the lender. Again, if you have a lender, the lender may say it's no problem, but other lenders might say you need to get 3 comps in the area that are on water haul, and if you can provide me with that, I'll do the loan. So water haul, again, that's something that's, if you are comfortable with it, we can do a sale of property on water haul. Again, more common in cabin towns, but water haul could just delay your closing because you have to get comps in order for your loan to go through. And the last thing is actually quite terrible. This is something that's been happening just recently, and it's title fraud. And what's happened, this happened to somebody in my brokerage, where a fraudulent person said they were the owners of a piece of land, and they listed it as they were selling it, and the real estate agent didn't know who was listing it, and the buyers didn't know, and he's about to sell this piece of property that wasn't his. And what had happened is the fake listing agent had put a sign on the property, and when the neighbors saw it and called the owner that they knew it, and like, hey, I didn't know you're selling your property. He was like, I'm not. They discovered this fraudulent scheme that's going on, where people will come in, pose as owners of property and sell it, and then you're unsuspecting your property. You don't get a tax bill. Now you know that's why it's been stolen from you, and then you have to pay tens of thousands of dollars to a lawyer to hopefully recover your property, but maybe not. So the people who are most at risk are people who have land. Land purchases are probably the highest risk. Also, if you have a property with no mortgage on it, if you have a vacant property, or if you have a rental property. Those are all at risk, but that doesn't mean other properties aren't at risk. But this is something that's been happening recently, so just watch out, protect your title. But if you're in a transaction and you find out that the seller really wasn't the real seller, that certainly will squash your real estate deal. And I almost forgot one, so I have a bonus issue that could come up for you, a bonus issue that could happen to kill your deal in the middle of your transaction. This has happened to me not once, but twice. Once was in Williams, and the other time was in Flagstaff, where I had deals under escrow and a forest fire broke out. And one of the times the house was actually in the evacuation zone of the fire. They were in ready, set status, which set means they might have actually been in go status. So the property was in the line where the firefighter is approaching and could have easily taken out that whole house. And at any time during the transaction, the buyer could have said, nope, I'm out, because it's going to burn down the fire. Or they could have just, if it had burned down, of course, that would have been the end of the transaction. The other time was a vacant lot, but it was in the area of a fire, and if the trees in the lot would burn down, that would certainly make it undesirable, and that would be something that would allow the buyer to walk from your deal. So if you have a home and a forest fire breaks out and you're in the evacuation path, that too can kill your real estate transaction. So that's it. Those are the 10 things that can kill your real estate transaction or just delay closing and make it uncomfortable. My name's Dawn Dickinson. Again, I sell real estate here in the northern half of the state, so don't be afraid to give me a call, text, email. My information to contact me is always in the description below. I'd love it if you like the video, subscribe, and please come back next week where I will be posting another video on what it's like to live in northern Arizona.